Hello everybody and welcome to my channel. My name is Henry, if you don't know, by the way. Uh, yeah, uh, Welcome to my channel. Glad you make it. Hope you didn't fall off the cliff or something. So, if you have any questions about or comments that you would like to leave behind, then feel free to leave them down below in the link below, and I'll try to check it every so often, right? Uh, it's just, I might not have time, I might, but I just I'll try to check more often about like one of these things. So kind of today's topic that I'm gonna talk about in this series, Talk to Me Self, is basically coding or programming or computer science in general. Is computer science for you? Are you a person who has kind of a decent exposure to computer science, but you're on the fence, not knowing whether or not you want to do computer science, you want to pursue computer science in college, or you want to just do computer science on the side as like a hobby, all sorts of that stuff. So if you're struggling to answer that question, whether or not computer science is for you, coding is for you, programming is for you, is it for you? Are those things for you? Then you come to the right video. So a little bit about me. So I'm gonna introduce you guys to kind of a little bit of my life, basically. I was exposed to computers when I was really young, like maybe 2 or 3 years old, something around there. I remember like using one of those like big CRT monitors, right, to kind of play games on it, basically. And this was back like in 20 not 2007, when the first iPhone is about to come out, and mm, what else? Like the rise of internet usage, right? People started using more internet, especially in developed countries, maybe even some like developing countries. Uh, Internet starts to become like the next big thing. Um, and yeah, I got exposed to computers. I got exposed to the internet, and I got exposed to all like the internet cafes, right? Going out, seeing people pay money to go in there and use computers, play like CS:GO and all of that games, Bomberman and typical like uh, computer games, and it kind of uh, it kind of set me on this path of or wanting to know more about how people are able to create these games, like games like Bejewel or Pop or one of those PopCap games or like Plants vs Zombies, right? Very good game. Uh, okay, but I always wonder, how does the PopCap developers, they themselves can create these games? The Plants vs Zombies, right? They have to design every level differently, right? Of course, some of the levels, the template is the same, but things are do different, right? Every levels have different mechanics, night levels and day levels and on the rooftop levels. So it's kind of it fuel a fire inside of me to want to know more about uh, how does computer work? How does these game work, right? What are they run on? What kind of oil are they running on? And so because of this, um, it, it made me want to learn a bit more about computers. And so I remember like spending pouring hours and hours trying to learn how to type, because that's the kind of the window to the world of internet. Is the your prerequisite is to know how to type, because if you use a computer but you don't know how to type, that's 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 going to be a hardship. It's like you're trying to run, but you don't know how to walk, basically. So you need to know how to type in order to use a computer. And so you know, I'm I began to learn typing in school. I learned how to type through games again. Once again, games kind of help me kind of develop computer skills in my life. Games like Typer Shark, right? So it's a Typer Shark is a game also made by PopCap about it's about a man going down to the depths of the ocean every level, right? And he has to fight. He has to fight off the shark. And to fight off the shark, you have to type out the words on the shark to kill the sharks. So yeah, so that's the essence of how I learned how to type is through games. And so it made me become more passionate about wanting to know what computers are, how they work, and basically uh, what they run on essentially. Like how do you go from a player playing a game to actually making these games, making these amazing Plants vs Zombies game, right? And so it's because of PopCap basically that kind of fueled fire for me inside. And so, but I didn't. But unfortunately, I didn't go more in depth. I didn't go more in depth of like learning how to code using coding languages. I just by the time I learned how to type, I ended there. I didn't like my curiosity just ended at that point. I didn't like go further and like wanting to explore like I didn't go further exploring coding languages. I just ended it there by typing because I realized that once you know how to type, you can use a computer, which you can use to download games and play. And I didn't think that you can really design games. Plus, this was back in 2009, 2010, early 2010s. So the internet was, I would say, more wild back then. And plus, I didn't get exposed to like the later versions of Windows. I was using Windows XP. Uh, I was using Windows XP back then because um, I didn't. Or actually, Windows 8 wasn't even invented. I'm not too sure. I'll leave you the date on when Windows 8 was invented, or Windows 7 actually, or even Windows Vista right here. I'll list the history right there. Boom. Okay. But yeah, I was using Windows XP because those when the later versions of Windows didn't even exist, or they did exist, but I didn't know. So we just used the common one, which is Windows XP back then. Uh, and yeah, so my reasoning is that if I know how to type, I can use a computer, I can download games, I can go online and play games, right? Why would I need to go and learn how to code to make games? And it's because of that caused me to kind of be in this delayed stage of not learning how to code. Uh, and I mean to this day I feel a tinge of regret for not knowing how to code earlier, right? Because if I learn how to code just a little bit earlier, right? Maybe like around 10, 11, 12, learning like JavaScript or Python, not Python, or actually Python, yeah, not JavaScript. I feel like JavaScript is sure you can learn JavaScript, but I feel like JavaScript the syntax is a bit weird, I would say. And the reason why I said that is because the developers they try to in making it simple, it becomes complex or complicated. I don't know. Uh, so yeah, I think learning Python really helps me kind of transition into different coding languages. But uh, yeah, to this day I still feel that tinge of regret not learning how to code earlier, right, in my life. Uh, I just I didn't no one told me that the necessity of learning to code will be this important later on and will be something that's society demands so much that they'll pay a lot of money for it. They'll pay a lot of money for experienced coder. I did not know that, so I didn't get exposed to the early kind of like stepping stone of coding. And so I have to wait until like I think it was around middle school, and that's when like I got exposed to Scratch. So Scratch is, if you guys don't know, Scratch is um, a programming language. It's not really a language. It's more like a kind of, you drag the blocks and you you, you drag the blocks and yeah, it's Scratch. Hold on, let me look at the history of Scratch first, and then I'll come back and I'll tell you more. Okay, so I just looked it up. So Scratch is a coding language that you have to drag blocks into the kind of the screen or the coding area. I don't know what that box is called. And then once you drag these blocks and you run them, then you execute the code, right? And so instead of typing the syntax, they provide you the syntax using blocks, just like how Legos work. Basically, you just building block by block until you have like some kind of figurines, some kind of computer programs, right? So that's what Scratch is mimicking. It's mimicking Legos, and yeah. So it's it's mimicking. I would say, yeah, it is kind of mimicking Legos, and so I got exposed to that. And at first, when I use it, of course, when anybody's starting out, right, they'll be confused. They're like, "What the heck is this? What kind of languages is this? What kind of like logic is this?" Right? Like, what are these blocks called if statements? What are these blocks called else statements? I don't know anything about these, but they sure look fun, right? What? Why is there a block called draw? Why when I drag it runs the turtle runs, right? Or the turtle draws a line, right? So it's just like, the logic looks weird, but it looks kind of fun. You can design a game from these blocks, and so I experimented with Scratch, right? And and I made some games too, and all of that. Oh, and did you know, like, if you look up on some of the Scratch project, I think a guy reduplicate the Typer Shark game, but using Scratch. So whoever out there, you're doing that, the author of that I guess that project, that Typer Shark in Scratch project, kudos to you. So yeah, really amazing. I get to play that, and I was kind of blown away at how you can make the game from scratch, basically. Pretty amazing. So it's kudos to you, the authors of that, and yeah. So my point is that Scratch opens up a whole complete world that's called programming that I didn't know, right? Earlier on I just know that coding is, or actually not coding. It's like using a computer. It's just to play games, to save a bunch of Word documents, to go online and play more games, to look things up on the search engine called Google, and that's about it. I don't know anything about like the functionalities of computer, right? Or coding, right? Beyond like, okay, using the start window, knowing how to save an Excel file and all that, and Word document, all of that, so, or using a PowerPoint document. So I thought like computers, oh, this thing is so easy, right? I just Bill Gates invented the Windows to just help us see icons so that you can drag your mouse. Like, let's say I drag my mouse here, right? Let's say I drag my mouse here, and then I click on it, and then bam, the logo just it opens up the program, and so you don't need to do anything behind that. that, right? Whatever happens behind, I'll let the Microsoft developers do it, right? Why would I need to learn the behind the scenes of computer too much, right? About the coding and stuff. But then I realized that uh, at one point during my time doing Scratch, right? This is a kind of a personal story. So I attended after school classes at this kind of like learning center, like tutoring center, but it's not really tutoring. It is tutoring, but I don't really for me, I didn't struggle with with like math or something, right? I went. The weird thing is that I went to the tutoring center, but I was taught math that are let's say that I think it was Calc 1 or Calc 2 level, it's kind of ridiculous, but yeah, I was I went to I have to be I went to the tutoring center, right? But the ridiculous thing is that I wasn't learning things that I'm behind. I was learning things that are ahead. So basically, the tutor that's tutoring me is actually teaching me things ahead, like Calc 1, Calc 2 level, and even Calc 3, if I remember correctly. So yeah, he just I later figured on that all the assignments that he tutored me. It's just like he went on to that website called Lamar. I think it's online. You can check it out. And he went to like Calc 1, Calc 2, Calc 3. He downloaded the packages and then he tutored me on that. So later on, I just said, okay, so if you can download that, then why the heck am I going to tutor? Why can't I just study online, right? So that's when I stopped going to the tutoring session. But anyway, that's another story. And what I'm trying to say is that at that tutoring center, right, they have another class to then like I think an afternoon or evening class where they teach kids how to code. And so I went there, and that's how I got. I also learned Scratch there. But then um, the next class after my class during my time there, I I I I made a few friends who learned JavaScript in the second class after my class. So my class there, I learned Scratch, and then after I'm done with the class, it's about an hour class or something like that. I usually wait outside or wait near there, for my parents to pick me up, uh, and then I just while waiting there, right? I usually just sit down with the kids in the class, Sometimes most of the kids there probably around 15 to 20 minutes starting class. They're not really busy anything. They're just sitting around waiting for the computer to turn on, And so I get a chance to sit with a kid who fired up the JavaScript projects, right? And he showed me like this other world besides Scratch, and he told me like this thing is called an IDE, I remember one time, yeah, he sat me down and pointed out like uh, this Visual Studio Code thing. This what the teacher is a female, she's a female. Um, she called it an IDE. And I asked what's an IDE, and he's like I don't know. That's what she said. So I'm telling you the exact same thing that she's saying. Like this is an IDE. You type a bunch of these words in, and it creates these programs. And so I was kind of at first I was really baffled. I'm baffled because I I I'm used to using Scratch, right? Where you don't have to type words in to make a program. But then he showed me this other world of coding or programming where you use words. You have to type words. You're like typing words. It's like you're typing words in a Word document, and it also runs, but it doesn't run a complete game. It's just running a bunch of words like "Hello World" or something like that. And later on, until this day, I know that you can code a game. But like back then, when you're a beginner, you don't usually code a game, right? And so I was on one side of my brain, right? I was thinking, oh, this is so cool. This is so cool. I never see this world of coding before. This is so cool. But on the other side of the brain, the other half of the brain, I was like, okay, but I have to type words out, and so how does it help me make a game, right? For Scratch, it's so easy. You just drag blocks. You drag it one from the left side. You just drag it from the for Scratch, right? You just drag it from the left to the right, and then you make a game. But this, I'm looking at his code, and he can't even make a game until like I don't know line 60, 70, something like that. And then that's our line 40 ish around there. You have to type a bunch of words to reach line 40 in order to make the game work and like the sprite kind of run. So I was like, this is way more complicated than Scratch. I don't want to learn this. It's so complicated. I can use Scratch already. It's so easy. Why are they like making things more complicated than it really is, right? I mean, you just code isn't coding supposed to be easy, like straight to the point? You drag blocks and you create games. That was my reasoning, and so that reasoning has led me to think that I should just stick with Scratch, not code JavaScript or Python or any other coding languages. And so I was behind for like 2 or 3 years and not jumping into the coding world. Actually, no. Mm, actually, that's not true because I I did got exposed to C++ very early, probably around eighth grade. I I yeah, by sheer luck, my interest got renewed. Right? I went to the library one day. I went to the library one day, um, uh, and I remember walking up to one of those science section, right? And there was a book that falls off the shelf, and I pick it up, and it was a C++ coding book from Barron, if I remember correctly. So it's a coding book from Barron. I opened it up and I started reading the first few pages, and it kind of captivated me because uh, it's kind of the same thing from scratch, right? It introduces you to hello world and all of that, right? But this time it's it's using really weird words that I don't know, like what the heck is include? What the heck is int main, right? I don't know these things, but it looks cool. It even promises me to make a programming game by the end of the book. So I was like, hmm, this this book is guaranteeing me something, and and sure enough, I checked out that book. I went home and I started, reading it. Fire up. I remember the first IDE that I downloaded is not Visual Studio Code. It's Code Blocks. I downloaded Code Blocks. And I started like firing it up. I start opening a new project and I start like typing C++ syntax in there, right? Just typing whatever the book said. So the book said type hello world. I type hello world. I test it out, and sure enough, it works. Right? Uh, Maybe there's a minor glitch here and there, but that's not too important. The important thing is that I just fire it up, open up the code block IDE and start typing in words, and that's how I got exposed to C++ first as a coding language, not JavaScript, not Python, and not C or anything, C++. And so to this day, I have like a special kind of relationship with C++, is because by sheer luck, I got exposed to it first, then probably by Python next, and then HTML, CSS, and then uh, yeah, I think that's it really, JavaScript. I'm still trying to learn. Uh, well, I think learning JavaScript is easy, but still this day, I still have to learn a bit about JavaScript, But in Java, because classes in school, high school. Uh, but C++ holds like a special spot in me because I got exposed to it first. So yeah, so that's 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 basically kind of like the apex of my passion, right? It's keep going up and up and up, and every time luck takes me to a different place. And so by the time high school rolls around, I begin to take I think I take principles. So I remember AP Comp Sci principles, and I learned about like coding. Some of the stuff is old things I remember, but then there's like things like you learn what ASCII is. You learn you learn what did you learn? Oh, the Diffie-Hellman key system, whatever that is, right? You learn what coding is. You learn like computer runs on binary system. Uh, you learn concepts that are what the AP Comp Sci curriculum call language agnostic, right? So the all the concepts in that class translates to different um, coding languages easy, right? It's not highly dependent on it doesn't highly dependent on one type of coding language. It's translatable, and so that's 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 about to be my one of my main point. I want to answer the question, today's question, right? Is that the reason why coding, I think, in my opinion, is easy is because all the concepts that are in computer science and all the concepts in coding are transferable or translatable from one language to another, right? Python, Python, all the concepts in Python like inheritance, polymorphism, uh, the this keyword, right? All of that, or actually they use self, not this, self. All of that, right? It's translatable. It has its equivalent in other languages like Java or JavaScript or C++, right? C++ you have that too. You inherit stuff by I think you write extend. I don't remember anymore at this point. But yeah, there's inheritance in C++. There's polymorphism in C++. Oh yeah, we call that virtual. Yeah, polymorphism. If you inherit a function from a parent class, and you're the child class, and when you're calling your method, right, you don't want to do a mix-up, right? You want to tell the compiler which method you're calling. Then you have to use the keyword virtual in order to point it to the correct method, right? So if you have a class A, here's method right here. I'm gonna show you class. Oops. Hold on. You have class A's method right here. You have class B method right here. You have class A method right here, and you have class B method right here. And if you want the computer to point to this one instead of this one, then you use virtual, and you can tell the computer, okay, I want this class or I want this class, So that's the virtual keyword is, and how it works in C++. So yeah, what I said. Like all the concepts in computer science are translatable. They are essentially language agnostic, because the goal of coding languages is to address different problems, right? But at the same time, they have to keep true to their basis, and that basis is all the coding languages you would learn in high school or college, right? Those are the basic things that a computer are based on. But of course, there are differences, like which coding languages is faster when solving one problem over another. But those are technically kind of minor, Okay, well, maybe they have major impacts on the financial world or something, but that's relatively not as important as trying to keep true to their basis, like things like polymorphism inheritance, right? If a coding language doesn't have like polymorphism, inheritance, the ability to declare a variable, then it's probably not going to be a pretty popular coding language if it doesn't have like the basics, right? Uh, when I mean like minor, like not so core details, I mean like, well, I'll give you an example. So like in C and C++, right, you would use pointers sometimes to uh, store variables, right? And sometimes you even use pointers to store things on the heap, right? If you don't want to store like objects on the stack to prevent stack overflow, basically, because the stack is so the stack is like a space in memory where it's limited in size. It's only dedicated to a certain amount of memory. Once you go over that memory, then we call that stack overflow. So if you want to not let that happen, you would declare things on the heap, because anything that's not stack is heap. That's basically it. So, but in order to call things from the heap, you have to use a pointer. You have to use a pointer variable to store that space, for that memory. And so C and C++, they use concepts of pointers, right? But in things like Python, right, languages that are dynamically typed tend to not use pointers, because I mean I don't really know the reasons why, but it's just that they don't use pointers at all. Yeah, you just call it directly. You don't use pointers, or if you're passing something, you're not passing by pointer. You're passing by value, or I think by reference too in Python. I'm not too sure, but I only remember that in Python you can only pass by value. You can never pass by pointer, because there is no pointer to pass. So yeah, so that's what I mean. So but for me, the pointers and stuff, those are minor, because I mean, they're good things to learn, especially when dealing with like memory management. But other than that, not so much. You can kind of code the same concepts in Python, which is without pointers, and you can achieve kind of the same thing. Okay, it might take a bit longer, but you can achieve the same thing. Now, things like inheritance, polymorphism, you have to have those, because you're essentially, when you're making a project, right, you have to have classes, essentially, and then you have to have classes that inherit other classes to make your work easier. And so if a coding language doesn't have those abilities, then it's not going to be widely used. So yeah, and like I said, computer programming, right? It's one of the reasons why it's easy is because it speaks a universal language, basically, kind of a universal concept that has to be held true. So that's reason number one to kind of like why coding is easy, in my opinion, right? Now I'm gonna move on to point number two. So point number two, why coding is easy, is because coding essentially is all about the game of looking things up, right? If you have any problems, right, or you don't know like what the heck this library is doing, what the heck this extension is doing, right? You don't know, maybe you mis-download something, or you download the wrong things, right? Or you didn't even know you're supposed to download something, right? And it gives you these error. You can just go on like Google, go on Stack Overflow. You ask, I have this error. What is the problem? Right? Or you can go into like Discord, right? And you ask people, I have this problem. It's showing me in red. What is it? Can you tell me what's the problem here? and people will likely answer that for you, will help you out. They will come and they'll look at the code and they'll say, okay, it's this problem, or it's this problem, or it's because you have a Stack Overflow problem, right, or something like that. So yeah, that's my reason number two, is that it's easy to look things up, and it's easy to get help, because the internet is nowadays, it's so easy to get help. All you do is go on those forums, you ask questions, and then someone will likely answer your question. Now, of course, it's you have to this is a kind of a side point. You have to you have to beware of Stack Overflow, because some people on Stack Overflow can be cocky, and they think like you're a noob, and you're going on there to ask like these dumb questions. In their eye, dumb, because you're just starting out, right? They have like 15 years of experience already. So Stack Overflow can be very very off-putting, right? It can deter people from pursuing computer science and coding, because being talked down is going to discourage people from pursuing something further, right? So do be beware of Stack Overflow, because Stack Overflow can have some of those very cocky people who thinks that they know more than everybody else, and they have the right to demean other people. So yeah, just kind of beware of Stack Overflow, and if no one answers your question on Stack Overflow, then try to find like a Discord forum, or like go on to like a Discord channel, or like go onto YouTube and ask question on the comment section, right? Don't heavily depend on Stack Overflow too much. So yeah, that's my second reason to why kind of coding is easy, and here's why. And is that nowadays there's so much help out there that all you need to do really is to be assertive and go on to these forums and ask questions, right? And you don't even need to ask questions sometimes. All you need to do is look up the documentations of some of these code, right? Like I don't know what npm packages that are needed to download, right? So you go onto npm.com, you look up like a package, right? Like I don't know how to make my project be able to receive a video file, a picture file, right? So you go on there and you write picture file, a video file, and it pops out things like the motor package, right? So the motor package allows you to accept photos to be sent to the server, right? So and then you look up through the documentation of the motor package, and you're like, oh yeah, this looks pretty good for my project. Let's download it. Let's download this thing to see if it works for my project. And sure enough, it works. If you're designing a website, right, on your local host, then surely enough it works, because that's how it was designed, right? So reading the documentation can help you out a lot. And so that's my main reason number two, is that there's so much help out there on the internet, documentations and other forum users, right? They can answer your questions, and YouTube and Twitter and every other social media that you use. If you have trouble with coding, upload your code and let people see. Okay, I think I'm going on a bit too much now. So here's my final point for point number three, I guess, kind of to wrap things up, is the reason why I think coding nowadays is a bit hot as in sense of like, I'm talking economic sense, right? People, these big tech companies like dishing money out like it's raining from the sky, raining from heaven, is because of the demand, right? And the reason why is is easy. Coding is easy. Is that I'm talking easy here in sort of um, a sort of a and the reason why I'm saying the word easy here is that I'm saying easy as in like a economic sense, basically. Nowadays, if you follow the first two reasons that I reasoned out, and you applied those two reasons correctly, you can make easy money, basically. Basically, you can make easy money. You just show like your boss or whoever, right? Or you go to university and show like your interviewee or interviewer. I mean, sorry, not interviewee, interviewer. Like you have these coding projects, right? You will be able to make some big bucks for top companies, top CS companies, or even like mid-sized CS companies, right? You can go and make big bucks for these companies because you know how to code and you can help them out, right? Coding can't, the code can't code itself. Somebody has to sit on the desk, sit under a desk or sit outside, pull their computer out and start coding, right? The code can't do coding itself. Someone has to code. And so, yeah, I'm talking easy here as in like an economic sense, right? Because the demand is so high that these tech companies are willing to pay big bucks in order to find talents. Basically, they need talented people, talented software developers who can sit for like 3, 4, 5 hours, can think with their brains, can translate whatever they are thinking into words, into coding words, and then just code out the project, you know. And I'm not even mentioning like other skills too, like soft skills, right? Like communicating with others, what the heck you are coding, communicating what the heck the purpose of your code is, right? If you can't like really tell the reason why you're coding or what the purpose behind your code is, then that's gonna be a struggle, you know. Like that's gonna be quite a struggle when people are trying to read your code and they don't know what the heck your code means. So yeah, I'm just saying like nowadays the demand for programming jobs is like really high, you know. That's why they kind of pay a lot of money, you know. All you gotta do is to know how to code. I wouldn't argue. Look, I wouldn't argue that you need to code well. You just need to know coding enough just to be able to pass the interview, right? If you're going through an interview, right, you just need to know how to code just enough for you to pass it, and then anything that happens afterwards, right, you can just keep learning on the internet, right? No, you can't learn everything for like forever. I mean, not forever, but you just can't learn everything at once. The learning process is continuous. It's built on top of one another. So yeah, so that's my 3 reasons why coding is easy, I guess. I mean, now I'd like to conclude this video by asking you guys that you know, do you think coding fits with you, right? And I like to just kind of make a rhetorical question, right, about like, is coding fit for you, right? If you know that coding fits with you and you love designing computer programs and making big bucks, right, then ask yourself this: are you willing to sit around the desk and code from sun up to sundown? Are you that type of person who's willing to sit around a desk, possibly even sun up to sundown, and code? Just code, you know, spend all your time coding and being obsessive with learning new different kind of languages, different kind of packages and how they work, dependencies or whatnot, right? Are you that kind of person? Or are you a person who hates jobs at the desk, who hate cubicle jobs, and would just rather go outside and enjoy the mother nature or something like that. If you're that kind of person, right, the second type, then I'm not deterring you from going to a programming job, but it's the environment is not built for you, so it's probably not going to be good for you. I'm just prefacing it ahead, so to kind of like for you to gauge a sense of whether or not coding or programming jobs are a perfect fit for you, because you don't want to waste your time in university um, just to end up with a degree that you don't love, right? And you don't know how to perform well at what your degree you can't perform, you don't perform well with the skills that your degree says you should be, then you are not going to get hired, right? If you're like cheating on your college homework in doing CS, right, and you by the end of 4 years you don't know what the heck a class is, right? You have no passion for computer science, even though you did computer science, right? You think you can't ace an interview, coding interview, then I think you better need to switch gears, right, quickly, or otherwise are going to be in a heap of trouble. So ask yourself, are you willing to work in a stationary environment, right, for quite a while, and just be be so in depth and in breath with learning how to code that the first word out of your mouth, whatever someone asks you, what's your passion, would be coding, right? Yeah. And then kind of my second question here for you to ask yourself whether or not are you a perfect fit for coding is, are you good at math, basically? Are you good at math? Because computer, in a sense, follows logic, and logic is built on math, right? If you guys don't know what a truth table is, a truth table is basically four different outcomes to a certain, I would say, logic gates. That when you mashed up zeros and ones together, it'll produce either a 0 or a 1, right? And so because of that logic, because of that logic, computers are able to function the way they work now. It's because of those gates, right? And when those gates happen, you can build more gates from them. I don't know what the term is, but if I was to call that, I call that a logic gate train, right? You're building an AND gate connected to an OR gate, and that whatever that result out you send that in as an input, which turns into an output, which then turns into another input, right? So you're building like a kind of like a bandwagon of logic gates, basically. So and that uses math, right? Because it's from one logic to another, right? So you have to ask yourself, are you good at math, right? If you are good at math, then CS would be a fit for you. Now, of course, just saying that, you don't have to be good at math to do coding, right? Coding is, I think, in my opinion, more understanding the language than the code. I mean the logic, right? The math, of course, you don't have to do like you don't have to understand calculus to code, right? Coding doesn't require calculus, but I'm speaking more in terms of the logical framework that you have to have in your brain, when you're thinking about coding, right? It's the skills, the logical thinking skills, right? What A leads to B, which then leads to C. You need to have that framework in your mind when building coding projects. It's not necessarily that you have to know math per se in order to know how to code, but remember, like, math teaches you kind of like the framework for thinking, like this critical thinking framework, right? 4 plus 3 is 7, right? There's a logic to it that whenever you're writing an @ sign next to two numbers, it means you're producing a higher number. Unless one of those two numbers, sorry, unless one of those two numbers are negative, right? Then it's lesser. But if both of them are positive numbers and you're writing a plus sign, then it can and will never be the result of that will never be less than those two numbers. So that's the logic that I laid out there. That's how kind of math is built upon, consistent logic. And so the same thing with computers, right? And designing coding algorithm, right? Computers doesn't understand how to build a project themselves, right? You have to tell the instructions, and so you have to have that logical framework mindset when you're coding stuff. So if you have a good sense of critical thinking and a logical mindset into building a program, right? Then I think it's a perfect fit for you, CS, especially coding, you know. And then here's my final question for you to consider is, are you a creative person, basically? And not a lot of people like mention about the creative part of coding, right? Of course, yeah. Mostly everybody was thinking like, okay, coding is more logic than creative, right? But that's not really true, because if there wasn't any creativity in coding, then there wouldn't be any like innovation, you know. Google wouldn't be the thing today without Sergey Brin and Larry Page, right? Deciding to work on their PhD by using or researching on this algorithm called PageRank, right? They think they made that leap of faith, thinking that this thing called PageRank can work, and so they did. And it's that creativity of thinking out the problem and a bit of faith leaping, right? Taking the leap of faith to open up, start a company and test out their idea, right? Being creative, right? Taking a different approach, right? An unorthodox approach. That's what led Google to what it becomes today, a large corporation, right? And same thing with many other like coding projects, right? Like look at those packages, right? People have to come together, put like or call those dependencies, wrap them in a nice package, and upload them online, right? So what I'm saying is, coding requires creativity, because without it, then I don't know, there will be no innovation. People would just use whatever others have made them. They wouldn't like invent. They wouldn't innovate anymore. They wouldn't become creative, right? Like I remember, like there was a quote from Bill Gates that said like he chooses the laziest person to do the job because that's the most creative person, right? That person will find something, a shortcut, the easy way out by coding out the whole project, right? To save time. And that's how innovation works, is to kind of save time, basically. So if you are a creative person, you love to innovate, then CS is perfect for you. Then computer science, coding, anything like that, perfect for you. Definitely. I guarantee you, if you ask yourself those 3 questions that I just mentioned, and it's a complete fit for you, then my friend, you found yourself a new hobby that can make money: programming. Well, I think that's it for today, for my first kind of pilot episode, basically. I'm not sure how this episode might work, of this series called Talk to Myself, right? So basically I'm just talking to myself about life, about specifically computer science, coding, whatever, programming, right? But it can be other stuff too. But for now, I'm just gonna stick with coding because that's what I know best. That's what I know most about computer programming. So yeah, with that out of the way, thank you for watching, and I'm gonna see you soon. Until then, so long. Bye, everybody.